Hello, this is Derek Arden and welcome to the Negotiators podcast. Today I'm with Sam Rathling. Sam is a LinkedIn trainer. She runs her own business on LinkedIn and no one is more an expert on LinkedIn than Sam. Sam, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Derek. Great to be here.
Sam, the real issue with negotiating is the more contacts you've got, the more information you can get, the more you can drill down into what people are saying, and the more you can suss out if they're telling you fibs or lying. And of course, lying is something that people do when they're negotiating. So I'd like to learn more about LinkedIn from you.
Okay. So how can I help?
Well, the first question is, how should we, the listeners and the viewers, be using LinkedIn more effectively? What are the biggest mistakes that people make on LinkedIn?
Well, it's a great question. I think the first thing that people really need to take a deep look at is their own profile, because that is really the first impression that people are going to get. Opportunities can come your way just by having a really decent profile that builds your credibility, builds trust with the person that's looking at you, and allows them to find out as much as they can find, because 57% of buyers make a decision about whether or not they're going to do business with you before they even step in front of the room and you have that meeting. So more than half of that negotiation is going to come down to what you look like, especially on LinkedIn as well.
So that's still the same thing that I teach everybody. First impressions count, whether it's on your website, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's just the way you greet people, etc. There's a greeting as soon as people look on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I mean, what your photograph looks like, and you have, either whether you have one of those blank, horrible blue turquoise background banners, or whether you actually have a really decent image that represents you as a professional. So your LinkedIn profile can be the start of everything, really. So it's really important that people have it fully completed. And the mistake that people make is a lot of the time they have it written like a CV and it's all about them, whereas it should actually be all about the customer and how you help your customer and how you solve problems for people. And I think that's the difference between a really decent profile and maybe one that's really about the person.
Okay, people have said to me, is your online CV though?
It is your online CV, but there's different ways of writing it. So yes, it's supposed to be a representation of who you are, but ultimately, if you think about your ideal client and who you want to be in front of negotiating with, put their hat on and imagine that you're reading your own profile. So a good test is to go after this podcast and go look at your own profile, but put your customer's hat on and see it through your customer's eyes and see if it really speaks to them as to how you can help them, or whether it's really all about you.
Okay, so that's for the person that's selling. A lot of my clients work in full-time jobs. They're engineers, they're accountants in the health service. And I say to them, look, you've got to be on LinkedIn. And I've got to tell you, they look at me like I've sort of gone bonkers. But I say to them, you never know when you're going to fall out with someone and never going to know anything else. That kind of's their CV. And just for them, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I train a lot of corporates, and I work with a lot of employees. So it's a similar thing. I mean, most of them have got it written like a CV, but yeah. I think the biggest thing to remember here is that you have a personal brand, whether you work for a company as an employee or whether you run your own business. And your personal brand is going to represent you for all aspects. So whether you're meeting somebody, negotiating with someone, maybe it's that you're looking for a career change. Your profile is effectively that image of who you are as a person. Your personal brand needs to really come through.
Sure. And as I say to everybody, you work for me, PLC, you don't actually work for the National Health Service.
Exactly.
You work for yourself, and you sell your time and your energy and your qualifications to those people. So you never know when you will need another job. And LinkedIn is the Facebook of business, really. That's what I call it. Is that too simple?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's the Facebook for business. I would definitely say it's the place for business to business professionals to network, build relationships, etc. It is being compared a lot to Facebook at the minute, but it's not something that doesn't necessarily fit with the way I view it. But that's just because of the level of depth that I understand the platform. But certain things could be said that it is similar to that, but there's a lot of differences in the two platforms for sure.
Okay. Now, from my point of view, these are one or two of the things I do. I don't know if it's right or it's wrong, but I get quite a lot of views. So I take pictures on my iPhone, particularly of people or myself when I'm out and about or something. And I was at the House of the Parliament on Tuesday, so I took a picture of a couple of people and me in the Westminster Hall, and then I post the picture with a post saying, I was in the House of the Parliament talking about negotiation skills. Have you thought about what your best position, target position, walk away is? Post that with a few hashtags, speaking, and also with a few named people, picked out the air in a way. And that seems to get a lot of views. Two days ago, it got 1,500 views and 23 likes. Now, it's a good use of my time, but is there anything better I can do on that?
That's a great question. So content, obviously, I mean, the biggest thing is that there are 645 million profiles on LinkedIn, but yet only about 3% of those people are posting content consistently. So if you are posting content, first of all, you're in the minority, which is great. So it can really help to get you visibility and build your credibility. I always use 12 different types of themes for content, and the one you've just described there would be what I call a documentary theme. So where you're just sharing what you've been up to for the day or the week, etc., where you're documenting your journey. That's a really great piece of content. So yes, hashtags are very new to LinkedIn, but are definitely worth using. I'd say no more than 3 to 5 on a post, and the more niche they are, the better, because you can get trending against one of those hashtags. Tagging relevant people in makes sense. And a little tip for you is when you are posting content on LinkedIn is to ask a question. So you gave the example in that particular one you've posted about the House of Parliament. You used a question in your post, which would have been the reason it drove engagement. So using questions on your posts can be a really effective way. So let's say directly you've been on speaking somewhere, for example. You could say, I've just finished a presentation with, name the audience, name the company, etc. And you could tag a few people that were in the audience and ask the question, what was the one thing that you took away from my session today, for example? And that would drive engagement under the post. And LinkedIn's algorithm, which is the code behind content, LinkedIn really loves posts that drive a lot of engagement really quickly. So the faster you can get likes, comments, shares, and comments underneath your post, the faster or the more views that post will generate, especially if it's a highly effective post with lots and lots of views on it.
So just say that again on the algorithm. What's the trick? They're asking a question?
So asking a question within your text of the post or in a video, for example. So you could just say, oh, here I am at the, House of Parliament, for example. That would be just a post of you documenting where you are. But if you did a post that included some tips and then asked a question, for example, have you ever visited the House of Parliament? Or what's your most favourite landmark that you've ever visited, for example? So it doesn't even have to be a question that necessarily is linked to the content of the context of the post, but just by asking a simple question, it can drive engagement, and that's what you want on posts. You want lots of people to be having discussions and conversations underneath. The other thing that can help you is if you comment back to everybody that has responded under your post. So again, using questions within your comments will help to drive more engagement. So if someone just puts a comment, but you've asked them a question back, then the more discussion that happens underneath the post, the more the algorithm's going to trigger, and it's going to put it out into more and more people's news feeds.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't get that. I've replied to the post, but I haven't asked another question back. That's why people ask me questions like, have you got more business? But that really drives me mad when they're doing that, because they're pitching at that point, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that's obviously not the thing to do on LinkedIn. The worst thing you can do on LinkedIn is try and sell anything. But, asking an intelligent question will drive an intelligent response and can then start a discussion underneath the post, which again, the more and more comments that happen, the more that post is going to just go into the, more people's news feeds. So your second and third degree network will start to see that. So it's not just your first degree connections that see a post. It can be, the effect of it can be much wider.
Oh, because other people repost it or they like it. Presumably if they like it, it goes out to their...
So for example, if I liked and commented on your post, it's my network that get notified that I've just liked or commented on your post. So my 16,000 plus connections, some of them will see that I've liked and commented on your post, and right now today maybe they don't know who you are, but they will get visibility of you and your brand just by me engaging with your content.
Okay, taking you back to something you said about a minute ago, you said LinkedIn doesn't like selling or advertising. Is there any mistakes we can make on that? I think someone told me that if you want to, Graham Jones and I are running a masterclass tomorrow, and I think someone told me that if you want to put a link, you put that in the comments rather than the main part of the post. Is that cheap?
That is definitely a little tip there, because LinkedIn makes its money by keeping people on its own platform. So the minute that you do a post, let's say you've written a blog, and you wanted to share that blog on LinkedIn, well, most people would just say, here's my latest blog, it's about this, this, and this, and they would put the link. And thinking that that's going to drive people back to their website or back to their blog. Well, LinkedIn wants to keep people in their own platform. So as soon as you post a piece of content that takes somebody away from LinkedIn, then you can forget getting visibility on that post, because it hasn't, LinkedIn wants to keep people in its own platform.
So LinkedIn's spotting that.
The link in the comments is a good tip, yeah. In relation to selling, I mean, it's, if you imagine two magnets, if you put two magnets together and they're the wrong way round, what happens to them?
Yeah,
they push away from each other, they repel each other.
Yeah.
And that's effectively what you're doing if you try and sell on LinkedIn. So people make mistakes by selling in their content. So they'll do a piece of content and they'll feel desperate and they'll say, well, contact me on this number if you want, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or buy my stuff, or, they don't understand that LinkedIn is like a place for people to network and build relationships. Right. They also make mistakes by trying to pitch too soon in the outreach. So if they're messaging somebody on LinkedIn and they're trying to connect with somebody in their target market, quite often they'll connect and immediately put a sales pitch in their inbox. And again, that just repels people. It just puts people off. It's happening way too often at the moment. So there are ways to do outreach without that happening, but the last thing you want to be doing is selling. I always say that social selling is the art of selling without selling.
What do you mean by that?
Social selling is the art of selling without selling.
Yeah, but what do you mean by social selling?
So social selling is the art of is by building relationships on the platform. So whether it's on LinkedIn or other platforms, if you build relationships and earn trust and build credibility by having a great profile, putting out great content. The trick is with social selling is that when somebody is ready to buy a product or service that you happen to offer, that you're the person that's top of mind, because you're the person that's been consistently in their newsfeed. You're the person that's built a relationship with them. You haven't tried to, pounce on them or sell them anything, but you are effectively building your personal brand and positioning yourself as somebody who's an expert at what you do, so that when someone does need what you do, that you're the first person that they come to. And it's about building relationships.
I understand totally what you mean. I would have called that relationship selling, but I guess social selling is...
It's essentially relationship selling, but in the online world. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, that's brilliant. I love that. Is there anything else we shouldn't do on LinkedIn?
There's lots of things you shouldn't do. I guess there's a really good measure that you can use to see how effectively you're using LinkedIn, and this will give you a good guide. So there is something called a social selling index, or for short, SSI. Yeah. And everyone has a score out of 100 points as to how well they're doing on LinkedIn. So if I give you guys a link that are listening to the podcast, you can all go check out what your score is once the podcast is finished. And that is linkedin.com/sales/SSI. Wow. If you go to that link, be logged into LinkedIn on one page and then open that link somewhere else. We'll give you the link in the comments below so you can get access to it. But essentially, there are 4 different categories that LinkedIn's looking at. The first one is how effectively are you building your professional brand? So that's to do with your profile and your content. The second is, are you building a network with the right type of people in LinkedIn's eyes? So that's, are you actively and proactively prospecting people in your target market? The third thing is all about engaging with insights. So it's about what kind of research you're doing on LinkedIn to find the right information. Plus, are you actually engaging with other people's content? Because if you're kind of invisible and in the background and very passive, then that's not going to get your brand out there. And the last one is, are you building trusted relationships? So each one of those has 25 points. It gives you an overall of 100. Even if you're on a free account on LinkedIn, you can all access your score. Ideally, you want to be 75 plus is kind of a really good place to be. But the social selling index is definitely going to tell you where you're performing well and where you're not doing so well.
Okay, there used to be something else for your whole social media, didn't it? But it got disbanded. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was Clout, wasn't it?
Clout, yeah, that's what it was. Clout.
So the SSI, the social selling index, will give you a really good indication as to where you are and how you're performing at the moment. So
okay. Now I want to ask you next what we should be doing right, and on anything we haven't covered already.
So obviously profile is really important. So getting that right is perfect. Content wise, it's about consistency. LinkedIn works really well when you're consistent. So consistently being posting into the newsfeed. So consistently sharing your story and your journey. The other thing as well that people are often not doing.
Yeah, that's kind of daily, weekly. Doesn't.
Yeah, I normally say 3 to 5 really good quality posts a week. Okay. If you're posting something and you don't get very much interaction, it's not a quality post. A really decent post should last for at least a week and a half if it's got good engagement on it. So I always say that quality is better than quantity. But 3 to 5 in a week would be about the right kind of measure, depending on what your role is, etc. The thing that people don't do and they should do more of is prospecting. So people can use LinkedIn to reach out to their target market. So if you want to sit in more negotiations and do more sales, then ultimately you need to be reaching out to more and more people. So consistent prospecting. I mean, even if you just did 5 or 10 outreaches per day to people in your target market, that would be a good consistent amount of outreaches to do, because ultimately that's going to fill your sales pipeline for the future. So every single day, if you're reaching out to people in your target market and building your network of the people you really want to get in front of, then that's going to help you in the long term to build your sales pipeline. And then the right type of people see your content, not just random people that happen to connect with you.
Well, when you say an outreach, what do you mean? Someone I'm already connected to, or to connect to people who...
Outreach. So this is reaching out to people that you don't know at the moment. So obviously you've got your existing connections, who are already seeing you and already connected to you. But then outreach to new people in your target market can help to build your brand, build your visibility, and get you in front of the right people that you want to reach out to.
Okay, well, almost the last question is, should I have a paid account or not? I did pay for it for a while, but I couldn't see any benefits for me. I didn't need to know who was looking at my profile. It seemed to be people I knew anyway.
It depends on the role somebody has. So I think if somebody's in a pure sales or business development function that's listening to this, or they run their own business, like Sales Navigator, which is the premium, it's not premium, it's the next one up from premium.
Okay.
Is a phenomenal tool. It's like a Formula One car of LinkedIn. But if you don't know how to drive the free version, then don't go paying for LinkedIn until you actually understand the platform effectively. So most people can do most of the things they need to do on the free version. The premium version, I agree with you, it doesn't give you, it just gives you your extra profile views, etc. But I do recommend Sales Navigator only when you understand fully how to make the free version work for you, and or if you're in a pure business development function.
Sam, that's amazing. Thank you very much for your time. Now, Sam, I want to congratulate you. I understand you've got a new book out, and it's gone straight to the top of the Amazon charts, and you've had 47 5-star reviews. Is that right? That's fantastic.
That's right, yeah. So it's called Linked Inbound. It's essentially my entire brain and on LinkedIn in the book. So one of the first chapters actually goes through and explains the social selling index, and it covers all the aspects of how to actually turn LinkedIn into a place for you to generate, build your personal brand, but also to generate business as well.
That sounds like a book that everyone that's listening to this podcast should be ordering on Amazon straight away. I'm going to order one straight away anyway. I'm embarrassing you, but so you should take this as being fantastic. It's brilliant having written a book, and you get so much credibility from writing a book. There's so many people will want to write a book, but they can't, and actually finishing a book is brilliant. So congratulations. Sam, how do people find you if they want some more expertise on LinkedIn outside of this podcast?
So obviously the most clear place to reach me would be LinkedIn. So go find me on LinkedIn, Sam Rathling. There's only 2 of us in the world, and the other one's the CEO of an IT company in America. So it should be easy to find me. You can reach out to me on my email, which is sam@linkedinbound.co.uk. But the 2 of those would be the best place to go. But obviously LinkedIn is the first place to go for me.
Brilliant. Sam Rathling, thanks so much for your time and joining the Negotiators podcast and my vlog today. Sam, thank you.
Thanks, Derek.